Arriving at Ilios.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for Horizon Overwatch Scrims. This is Argoner, and of course, with me, as always, is Dancer. Dancer, how you feeling, buddy?
I'm feeling great today. I'm really excited to see some high level scrims. Had that itch for some high level Overwatch that contenders just wasn't scratching. And I really wanted to hear your voice, to be honest, Arg. I love your casting.
Appreciate it, Dancer. Well, today we actually get a little bit of a change of pace, so it's going to be Ilios here, and attacking team, or I'm sorry, the team on the red is going to be Gingy's team, which of course is Birdbrains. So very curious to see what they actually put together here as an offense. See Doomfist. I do want to actually. I'm a huge fan of Doomfist. Actually, I think Doomfist can do a lot of work. The only problem is if your team isn't very aggressive. Doomfist, you want him diving the backline, getting those free kills, but your team needs to actually be able to follow up with you. When Doomfist goes in, gets the enemy team turned around trying to deal with him, that's when your D.Va comes in. That's when your Tracer can come in and actually do more work. So if they're going to stick with the Doomfist, I definitely want to see them pulling out a lot of aggression here.
I love some good Doomfist play, and I mean, with the Sombra changes, it feels a little bit risky. Doomfist is probably one of the more punished offensive heroes from the Sombra being more meta nowadays. And it's not an NA scrim unless there's 2 pauses before first map starts.
And 2 pauses, I think somebody was AFK a short time. They're not going to have a whole lot of time to actually figure out what they're going to do. It looks like it was Gingy who was the one who was AFK there. So what we're seeing from the Birdbrains is a little bit of confusion before they get started. Quick switching between the Mercy and the Zenyatta. Curious to see what they come out with. Gingy is finally back, picking up on the Genji. Now we have the doors open here. Flood is also on the Genji as well, so we're going to see whose Genji can get that Dragon Blade out first. Really, really huge swing potential with the Blade, but just depends who has that edge. You see KADC going in, making a lot of space as that Winston, so he doesn't actually have to do a whole lot. What he's doing is he's jumping in and he's creating that bubble that the rest of his team can actually push into. So although he's not doing a lot of the damage, he is confirming those kills. He is buying a lot of space for his team. Now it looks like it's going to be a very quick point cap here if, of course, Gingy can keep everybody else up point. Looks like he's going to, and the first point cap's going over to the Birdbrains, just getting out for some exit kills now.
And we're seeing Overwatch in its purest form. We have the perfect mirrored comps too, so no team has an unfair advantage. They're both playing the exact same thing, so at this point it's just who's getting the win condition more often and faster.
Yeah, and if we take a look at even the ultimates are actually pretty similar here. I mean, Gingy does have a little bit of an advantage, but the Tracer ultimates are coming up from both sides here. It looks like we should be seeing Zenyatta's Transcendence coming in from both sides, although, the question is how you're going to pull that Transcendence out from the enemy team Zenyatta before you put your Blade in. And we're going with Blade in right away, going straight for the straight for the Zen. Zen goes down. It looks like it's going to be at least a 3K coming in for Gingy here, and that's going to be it. That's a pretty decisive team wipe. Actually, having the confidence to know you built Blade likely before the enemy Zenyatta was able to build Trans, very confident from Gingy and was rewarded for the good play.
If you watch the tank health bars in both of those fights, they never really drop too low, and Zen's typically going to be farming those health bars for his ult, so I think it's just good awareness on their team, and they called out knowing he probably wouldn't have it
yet. Alright, so a bit of a skirmish is breaking out in the middle here. There was Transcendence used. That is from Zeroburst side, so Avaris does not have Transcendence coming into this next fight, which might be a pretty big deal because he's already going down to the Genji, and it looks like 2 kills coming in for the Birdbrains again. I think this is going to be another point cap, and this could potentially be final fight if it does last long enough. And now we're just up on cleanup duty. It's about 90%, 92% to get to the point capture, so it's not likely that Burst is going to be able to get any sort of presence onto the point to be able to trigger overtime. Monkey does try to get in, but he can't. Even if he had, probably would not have worked out too well for him yet, dying almost instantly when he gets in there. So pretty handy fight one there, pretty handy map one there, I should say, for Birdbrains. What did you see there? What was kind of the key to the Birdbrain success, Dancer?
First of all, that early ult, you called it with Gingy. it's so big. It's massive. He knew he built it before the Zenyatta ult. C-Moose just backed him up with his Lucio ult to make sure they win the fight. First fight is a big deal. It has to be won decisively, and we saw a good reset from Zeroburst there. So that reset kind of allowed the Bird Brains to get such a good ult economy off. And I think ult economy single-handedly won them the game in that manner. You know, the way that it was so decisive, and we knew for sure that the Bird Brains were dominating there. I think they just used their ults so efficiently that it was very hard to beat them.
And now it looks like we have, looks like that might be the thought here coming in again for the Bird Brains, because Gingy is already almost 100% on that Pharah Barrage. He's doing a lot of work so far. Gingy has been really outplaying the enemy team as far as getting that damage in and staying alive. So it looks like we're going to see an early Barrage here. Is able to confirm the kill, even with Moira using her shift to get out of dodge. Could not get far enough. Gingy is taking the kill there. So this is the point where you have to decide if you're on, Zeroburst. Specifically, what are we doing against this Pharah? She's not an afterthought. She's not somebody you can really ignore throughout this fight here. Who are we going to be putting on Pharah duty, and what can we do to better enable them? It does look like Dan Twist is on the McCree. I don't know if that's going to be enough with the Pharah getting pocketed by the Mercy here.
I think you might have to lose the Junkrat here. Junkrat, I mean, there's two characters that are no longer on the ground. They're not going to be grouped up. You're going to lose that burst AoE damage that Junkrat sort of excels with. So you're playing into like your enemy's strength in such a bad way. I really want to see Flood change off. I don't care how close he is to the tire. Maybe if he gets a good tire, he might be able to take out the pharmacy. We've seen it before, but...
Giant boop coming in from Gingy at the spawn doors. There's actually a small crack where somebody can fall down, and Gingy threading the needle, taking out a risk. And actually that's huge, buying about an extra 20 seconds before No Burst can actually push here. So, and I agree with you. I think Flood, even though tire's coming up, you're not going to get a lot of value out of it. I would really like to see, the soldier pick is okay. I would actually much rather see maybe a diva pick, going triple tank here, just establishing that presence, not getting killed. But of course, Dan Twist does come in and get that kill. That is huge for them. Gingy is actually out of this fight here. But not a whole lot of action coming in outside of that. Flood does want to try to get in and get some damage, but cannot find a good place to go. Getting boxed out by the enemy Tracer, by the monkey on their side, and of course the diva there. So Flood is really getting pinned back here. A very, very decisive fight. Even though that first pick did come in on Gingy, Gingy's already back. And remember, Gingy has another Pharah ult coming into this map. The question just is, when are you going to use it? You've got the flank here, but nobody really seems to be walking in, so it seems like No Burst might be a little bit out of sorts here. They don't really know how to handle, great job, of course, by Dan Twist getting that first pick onto the Pharah, but what do you do once you get that first pick? I saw a lot of standing around there, which, Dancer, you know me, I really, really don't like teams who try to stand still, and you're seeing how you pay for it. You got that. And even if they win this fight, they should have won this fight much more decisively when Dan Twist got that first pick. He actually got 2 more kills throughout this fight here, but still not enough. So 3K coming in for Dan Twist throughout that team fight, but unfortunately his team was not there to follow up. Another map goes to the Bird Brains.
It's funny that you mentioned the not walking in, because I mean the biggest reason you're not going to walk in against this comp is just out of fear of the pharmacy. We saw Gingy hitting those massive rockets consistently. He built ult twice before Flood even would have had his tire. He did swap, but I mean he was 80% when Gingy got his second Pharah ult, and that's just because of poke. There wasn't even much of a fight on point across that entire map. Gingy's just getting so much free poke. He's spamming the doors where the health packs are. He's spamming where you would normally group up. And even though he's not getting direct, he's hitting 3 or 4 people with each boosted rocket, which just gave him maybe 15% per rocket shot into those spaces. Yeah, not walking in is definitely hurting them here.
And now let's see, we're going to see a lot of play back and forth with Widows. Of course, this is one of not only the best Widow map of course, Ilios. This is one of the better Widow maps of the entire game, just with the kind of sightlines you can get, but not for Flood there, going down very quickly to KADC, but it's not going to do too much because most of the kills here are going in favor of No Burst. So it looks like we might see the first decisive team wipe, yes we do, coming in from No Burst. Dan Twist, again, doing a lot of work there. So if you remember, he was the McCree last game who was popping off towards the end. Now switched over to Tracer. It might have been a very good pick because Dan already has that Pulse Bomb ready to go, hoping to get an early pick here. You get an early pick on a maybe one of the healers, maybe even one of the tanks, you're going to stop their push completely. So let's see what Dan's looking to do here. All right, Gingy back to that spot, getting a couple pot shots in, doing a lot of damage to Flood, but no actual kill coming through yet. And this is the battle which usually... and with a huge headshot, getting the battle into the favor is Flood, coming in from no burst. Don't need any burst when you get a trick shot headshot on the enemy Widow like that. And just like that, it's going to be another team wipe, or at the very least another team fight victory coming in for no burst. So Flood really showing off what it takes to be a great Widow, getting another kill. Gingy is not having a good time.
And I don't know about the DPS decisions here on Bird Brains. They're getting caught out behind enemy lines. They're peeking when they don't need to, and it's really punishing them. They aren't taking any 6v6 fights here.
All right, so we are able to get a little bit of value coming in from Kurt's Diva Bomb. Is able to take out the enemy Diva. That's actually huge not having Diva here, but Gingy comes back, gets a headshot on Flood, so Gingy finally winning one of those Widow 1v1s. Kurt's being taken out on point, so it looks like this fight might be finally going in favor of the Bird Brains here. They just need to get their act together and get on point here. Not a problem at all coming in from Ski, who was able to take down the enemy Lucio as Zenyatta, doing so much work, doing a lot of heals. The Discord is out, but also these right clicks coming in onto that Monkey, really making him completely useless in the fight. So finally some breathing room coming in for the Bird Brains here, mainly on the back of their Widow getting a pick on the enemy Widow. Flood was going down early in that fight. And then of course, Ski staying up so long, doing so much damage, and now having Transcendence. So even if the enemy team wants to push here, there's not a whole lot you can do walking into that Transcendence, unless of course Dan Twist, the enemy Tracer, gets Fatty Pulse Bomb, but we'll have to see how he plans to use it here. Who's he going to stick with it? Flood is once again showing us why probably the best Widow we're going to see on this map today. That is maybe the third out of 4 1v1s that she's won against Gingy. So really, really confident kills coming in from Flood. Does go down to KABC. Looks like it's going to be another team fight going in the way of the Bird Brains here. They feel very confident once they've taken point. They are able to defend. They do make some smart decisions, but you know, we saw at the beginning of this map, Dancer, once they get pushback, once they actually get the enemy team getting some of those key picks and walking in off of it, it doesn't really seem like the Bird Brains know too much what to do.
I don't like seeing both support ults used in one fight, which is what happened to the Bird Brains there. We see that now Zeroburst has the Zenyatta ult. Unfortunately, he dies, as I mentioned it, the caster curse, but they really could have made something out of that, and they might still have a chance if support ults aren't built again in this next fight.
Yeah, very decisive defense. Every single time that, you know, it feels like once Gingy gets in the zone, gets in a position where, you know, maybe feels a little more confident, is able to shut the enemy team down from walking in. So Flood has realized that. Now switching onto the Genji, remember, initially was that Widowmaker. Stick coming in, Pulse Bomb, 2 kills. Giant Pulse Bomb coming in from the Tracer. NM gets 2 kills on both the enemy Tracer and the enemy Winston. That's pretty much going to be a guaranteed fight coming in for the Bird Brains here. Although it was not a pretty tale on how they got there. Pretty sloppy in the beginning, kind of stacking some of their ults together. But in the end, they were able to defend and feel very confident on their defense, not letting anybody come in and take any advantage over them in the team fight. So just a little bit more housekeeping duty here on the point, and then we should see it going 3-0 victory over to the Bird Brains for map number 1.
That was a pretty clean game, pretty clean fights. We saw good hard resets, but I think a little bit of a problem that both teams were running into, and we saw more so there on Ruins than any other map, is the poking in between the resets. We see Widow, you know, trying to get that kill. When you're down someone, it's just not a good call to do that. It's not in your favor. Even if you win the Widow duel there right after your Tracer dies, your numbers are going to be even by the time you can push. I don't like some of those decisions that we see, and even when Gingy took some of the fights, he'd take a fight 5v6, and he would lose to Widow sometimes, and it's really just killing your time bank there. Some unwise decisions being made.
And I think Gingy felt fairly confident to be able to take out Flood, but did not expect to lose that Widow duel. I think there was about 3 out of 4 times that Gingy actually came up on the wrong end of that duel. So very curious to what we see here coming up on King's Row. Now, King's Row, we do pretty often on attack here see maybe a Widow pick, maybe a Hanzo pick just to get that quick Sonic Arrow, you know, onto Theater, maybe onto Hotel, just to see who's hanging out there. Curious to see what they're going to be pulling out here. This is a pretty good Widow map, at the very least for point A here. There's a lot of good sight lines you can get, either on attack or defense, so we might actually end up seeing another Widow battle. More likely what I think we're going to see is a lot of tanks. As we know, King's Row is especially kind for Zarya, one of her best maps in the game, and of course it's especially kind for Reinhardt. You know, really with just the shape that this map is, and that kind of like banana shape that you walk into when you're trying to get to the point, there's so much cover for the attacking team, a few different directions that they can choose to go, and it gives your Reinhardt a lot of opportunity to keep his shield up, use the terrain as his shield, and then walk in when he's feeling like he has, you know, confidence on the point. So it's very curious to see. Actually, we're not seeing a Zarya coming in. That might be... I'm not going to call it here because, of course, you can win, but if one team, which is the attacking team, the Bird Brains, has a Zarya, and you don't have a Zarya on the defending side, I feel like that puts you at a pretty big disadvantage.
Especially since a lot of people don't know, but Zarya's bubbles got reworked a very minor amount. I don't even know if it was added into the patch notes. But now if 2 Ryans pin each other and one has a Zarya bubble and the other does not, the one who does not have a Zarya bubble, it'll be of no effect. His pin won't counter pin, and he'll actually just lose the duel right there. He won't get the opportunity to outplay the other Ryan. So more so now than ever.
That's a huge deal.
It's a massive deal, especially since you know Ryan and Zarya are played almost exclusively together. If one team's running it and the other is not, you're in big trouble if you're not breaking that bubble before the pins come out.
All right, so pretty nice position here. Of course, you got the Ana high ground. Yido's going to get a lot of energy, though, because, of course, you know, Flood is on that Junkrat, which I do like the Junkrat here. It does give you a lot of opportunity to put a lot of spam damage into the attacking team. Unfortunately, if the attacking team has Zarya, she's going to be pretty much 80 to 100 energy during every single team fight, you know, making her less of a tank and more of an absolutely insane DPS on the field. All right, so there is some rotation. What I like that I see, and I'm going to have to call Serial Killer out on this one. I was going to say I like the patience I was seeing. Rotation on point, not really giving up space, just asking the enemy team, all right, what are you going to do? Why are you rotating? We're ready for you. And then that charge into the enemy team. If you are a Reinhardt watching this, please, please do not make that charge, because even if you get a kill when you're charging into 6 of the enemy, even if you get a kill on, let's say, their Mercy, you are going to die. There is no way you're going to make it out, so you don't really want to take that charge directly into the enemy team. You want to get them maybe going sideways, a short charge, pin them onto a wall that's close to your team so you don't die immediately, and I think that's really what caused the loss of the fight there. Loss of control, and then the Bird Brains were able to walk in.
I feel like you didn't even have to pin there. You saw the Ryan miss that pin. I was expecting to see a close off to the left. You can sort of, with Ryan, wall off the enemy team from their own Ryan, and you know he doesn't have a pin. He can't backwards pin you. He can swing his hammer, but he'll take damage from your team. You can use the Ryan shield there to build space and basically get a free kill on their Ryan who missed his pin.
But really, heads up play. So here's the problem with Flood right now. Flood is doing a lot of damage, but not getting a whole lot of kills. Got a lucky kill a little bit earlier, but now Flood using that tire does not get any value. He gets a little bit caught up on the wall, and the enemy Reinhardt is able to take the tire out of the sky. So now Flood is at a position where, you know, on the heels, you can make the enemy walk into your grenades, but really all you're doing is charging up that Zarya energy even more. And now she's going to be coming in with the Graviton. Probably doesn't even need it because KDC is getting a huge Earth Shatter, and that's going to be another team wipe here. So this is what I want to see coming in from No Burst. really, I mean, they've been getting steamrolled hard. The snowball has been rolling down the hill, a constant ult advantage coming in, except for this one moment in time. So this is where No Burst needs to slow down and figure out, how do we win this next fight? We have the ultimates. We know we have ultimates. We even have that transcendence to fall back on. How are we going to win this fight decisively to stop this snowball?
I think they got to be thinking about this grab that Zarya has. If Ryan and Zarya can keep just rotating their ults, they are an unstoppable force. So if you don't shut down this grab that's about to come out very soon, I mean, it's game over. The payload's right here.
Well, they have no way to stop the grab. There was no switch onto Divish, so the chance that you had to eat it was there. But then, of course, you don't really need it when Flood pops off like that, getting a 3K. So even though the Graviton Surge comes in, make that a 4K for Flood. That's exactly what his team needed. I don't know that I would have relied. I would have liked to rely on, Flood popping off like that, because that was a scary Graviton Surge. There wasn't a whole lot that they could have done there, except for getting those first few, albeit lucky kills from Flood.
We did see Kurtlebert pop his Roadhog ult. It would have built space, I think, either way. It would have been really hard to get the follow-up. Serial Killer wouldn't have got in for his follow-up, so I mean, either way, you might have been safe. You got lucky that Flood did pop off and got those 3 kills, because space doesn't necessarily mean a team. But I think
and it looks like Gingy just opened up that room for them a lot, getting the Ana pick before anybody walked in, and then Flood got a little bit jebaited, pulling out the tire, trying to get that pop onto the Widow, but of course Widow got blocked by a beautiful shield coming in from Zarya, so was not taking any damage. Great job to Gingy to be able to open up that fight for the team, and I think that's what we're seeing a lot here. So, really, what dictated that fight was a little bit of a confusing charge at the very beginning from Serial Killer, who just opened up that fight for the Bird Brains. But then after that, it just felt like consistently the Bird Brains just had this tempo on their side. They were able to dictate the pace of every single fight. When they wanted to walk in, they were not reactionary. They're very proactive with all their actions. So I feel like that's what made it so easy. The only thing stopping them, of course, was those giant kills coming in from Flood. But now we're going to have to see. We know that the Bird Brains can be aggressive. We know that they can get on a roll. Now, what changes does No Burst make to really stop that? Right? How do you stomp out that aggression that has been coming at you every single map so far?
It depends where the aggression's coming from. We've been seeing the Ryan actually build tons of space. So, I mean, try and pull out some CC for him. I'm a big fan of the Doomfist to counter Ryan comps. Doomfist can just CC him. You can even just basically rotate your punch and your shift to make sure he never can press W. So maybe if the Reinhardt's the problem, building too much space, maybe go for that. But I think you're correct here. They got to identify what the problem is, and they definitely got to swap to counter it. And it looks like there's anticipation of the quad tank here. Junkrat's typically the answer to that. Build the quick tire and take out a free support.
Yeah, and that's really what's going to push them across on this point. Push No Burst across is, when you have that, multiple tanks, triple tank, quad tank, really what you want to do is just bring the fight to the enemy team. You want to bully them off the team, because hopefully you have the HP pool to back up that lack of DPS that you're pulling out. So you really want to bully the enemy team, try to force them into a position they don't want to see, and maybe miss some shots, and that's when you capitalize, especially if you can get a cheeky little Roadhog hook off. That's such a huge deal. Did not go that way, and all that first push really did was give Gingy tire. If we take a look at the ult differential coming in from both sides here, you've got multiple ultimates coming in from Bird Brains, and I mean, the closest that we're at, we have, of course, Coalescence coming in from No Burst, but the closest after that, we're at 50% for the enemy's Junkrat's tire. That's not really going to hold up, especially with Gingy popping right now. And a huge time.
So
I
big.
actually thought for a moment that Flood had gotten the, that Dancers had gotten the kill on the tire there, but really heads up play, seeing that mine was coming in from the enemy Junkrat, getting a 2K is Flood, is Gingy. So looks like Gingy might, if everything goes all right, might be able to get 2 tires for every single one of Dan Twist's tire. That's how much work Jinji is really doing here. Notice Dance Twist is still 80% to the first one. Jinji's already 40% to the second one. All right, this might be the one right here. So Coalescence coming and doing a lot of damage, but most importantly, keeping your tanks up. That's the entire reason you run so many tanks, is because you want that Coalescence to get as much value as possible. Unfortunately, when you're walking into a team like the Bird Brains with Jinji on team, you're not gonna get a whole lot done. You know, the Coalescence is gonna buy you time, but it's not gonna win you the fight. Really what's gonna win you the fight there is, you know, can you get enough time with the Coalescence to build maybe your Earth Shatter, or build maybe, you know, Graviton Surge, something to allow you to actually capitalize on the whole reason you walked in the first place. With just Coalescence as your backing, and a lucky charge, I guess, on the enemy Reinhardt, looks like it wasn't enough. So Yeatle in a great position, throwing down the, maybe you should have looked before you thrown that one, because not everybody went that direction, Yeatle. Very unfortunate there.
Disappointing. Zarya ults all around as Killabert gets his eaten as well.
So essentially we didn't have Zaryas in this fight, but we did have a giant Earth Shatter coming in, and that's probably going to seal the deal here. So Serial Killer making, you know, that small mistake that had a lot of ramifications all the way back in the first fight of this map. Now opening up this fight for his team, able to get, looks like it's going to be pretty decisively capped here. So really, really smart heads-up play with that Earth Shatter, capping the point for your team. And now Kurt's just going to be up there trying to get some more energy, maybe get a little pick at the end here, trying to get some of these exit kills as people try to escape.
And then in King's Row, it's all about the tank ultimate. So, you know, you want that Zarya pushed up. You want to build Grav again as fast as you possibly can. And maybe this time try not to get it eaten.
And hopefully not, but it looks like you're going to get Graviton Surge already much faster than Yeet was able to pick up another Graviton Surge. Although he is 70% to it, that's not the same as having one. So it's going to be a very decisive snowball getting started to pick up from No Burst side. Dan Twist coming and getting a 2K, of course getting pocketed by that Mercy. And what I'd really like to see here is a very aggressive Graviton Surge. I want to see a Graviton Surge coming in from No Burst within the next 10 to 15 seconds. You know, when you're playing as Zarya, especially on a map like King's Row, where you know you're going to constantly be getting energy and constantly getting ult charge, you can really use your Graviton Surge on cooldown, provided that you get at least 1 or 2 healers in there. It's worth doing. But Kurt, unable to stay alive for long enough, is taken down before using the Graviton Surge. That's going to be such a huge deal, especially if Yeet is able to pull up that Graviton Surge of his own, and he is! And just like that, being that dominant of a position, the No Burst was in such a dominant position there. Zarya was in position, of course, didn't want to throw the Graviton Surge into the enemy team's Diva. I do appreciate that, but if you're going to go high ground, you probably want to make some moves when you're up there. Standing still in line of sight of the enemy team didn't really work out too well. So looks like we might be able to get a fight here with the Graviton Surge, but of course not knowing, or hopefully they do know, that the Transcendence is waiting just on the other side. A big block coming in, a bit of a reverse shatter, so there's going to be no need for the Graviton Surge, because Serial Killer gets a block on the enemy team's Earth Shatter and gets a fat one of his own. Dance was trying to clean up here, getting 1K. Jinji, so we've got kills going back and forth. Jinji getting a kill of his own, but it looks like more kills are coming in for No Burst side. I take that back. KDC is getting another kill, trying to keep his team relevant in this fight, but it's just going to be a little bit tough. No Burst has got numbers on you, and it looks like, yeah, you're going to have to let this one go. Maybe take another fight right before it caps next point. Now, Jinji going down there is actually pretty important, but he was able to take the enemy Diva out of suit. So are they going to be able to touch her? Unfortunately, Bird Brains aren't going to be able to make a fight. They made that decision not to attempt to fight there. The enemy Diva didn't have her suit. Maybe you could have done a little bit of work there, but I gotta say, you know, I really applaud, you know, the slow pace here. You're trying to slow it down, stop dying first, and just get this fight back into your own control. Jinji is able to do that, taking down Dan Twist, but of course he's back up because Mercy exists in the game. Huge kills coming in from both sides here, but it looks like, you know, that patience
that we saw from the Bird Brains earlier, not trying to force the fight on a point that they were pretty sure they were going to lose anyway, but the patience to actually slow down, wait until they were ready to push, really paid off, because now they've got control. They've got High Noon coming in from Jinji, which is most likely just going to be used to you know, maybe combo with Graviton Surge here. It might just be a zoning ult here. I'm very curious to see what they're trying to do. Certainly you got to take the Reinhardt out of the play here if he's going to be in the Graviton Surge. And it looks like he is able to do that. So Serial Killer's taken out by KADC. Graviton Surge is holding everybody together, and Jinji's able to get those 3 skulls coming up for the High Noon. 3K coming in from Jinji, getting a 4th kill on the D.Va mech after.
That was so clean. You saw Jinji and you saw his Zarya Yedel sitting up there. They knew they had time. I think the comms are very clear. They must be, because they knew they had time. They heard the grab come out and they stayed patient. They took a peek. They saw a few people and then they grabbed, had better positioning because they already set up on the flank. And it was just a clean team fight win. And the best part is that they had gotten Kilobert's grab out too. So just really evening out the ult economy here. It's really hard to win these fights when you get that much value out of your ults.
And what we're seeing, you know, so often coming in from Bird Brains here is patience, right? So, you know, they're not going in full aggro all the time, but they're being very patient. They're taking the fights that they know they can win, and then they're pressing advantage after that point. Now, here it looks like they're going to be pushed back, which is absolutely fine. You've gotten the clock into overtime here, and the team is barely pushed because you had them in their spawn for like the last minute and a half, right? So, you know, that's one of the things that you need to realize is losing that fight there actually isn't a big deal. It just means that your entire team respawns with more than enough time to stop payload with one final push.
And you know you're only going to have one more fight here, so you can wait until the cart gets pretty close, then you go to touch. They have horrible respawn timers and a long walk, and so you just have heavy defender advantage in this last fight.
And I really like the positioning KDC is taking here, being very aggressive, straight on the point, gets the charge, and Dan Twist is unfortunately caught up in that charge. There's going to be a 3K coming in. Nobody's able to stay on the point, so much closer there, but congratulations to Bird Brains. Really, really smart heads-up play there. A lot of patience, and what we're seeing here is they seem to have a command over the clock, right? They're playing in such a way that it removes as much time as possible for the enemy team while still giving yourself plenty of time to get those final kills in. And just exactly what we said a moment ago. Watching Jinji up there with his Zarya, being very smart, not peeking, not getting any trash damage in, but staying completely hidden until it was time to go, and even taking it a step further than that, waiting out the D.Va defense matrix before pulling the trigger there. Again, that's what we're seeing every single time, and what's going to be very important, actually crucial to understand, is from Nobur's side, you know, you're fighting a team who seems to be outpacing you, at least with the ults, at least in the team fights, right? Maybe they're not better, but in this moment, they're outpacing you. So are you going to try to go with something maybe a little bit unconventional? Are you going to change up your style? Or are you going to keep trying to push the style that you feel most comfortable with and just hope to start getting the better of those 1v1s, even of those 5v6s when you have a man down? You know, can somebody on your team actually carry to that win? So I'm very curious to see if it's going to be a big change coming in from Zeroburst, if it's going to be something a little bit smaller.
And Bird Brains are consistently, every single fight, especially we saw it more so I think on the defensive side, they're always trying something sneaky. So I wish we could hear the comms of Zeroburst, but they should be screaming, you know, who's missing? Is the Reinhardt missing? If you don't see the Zarya, you should know exactly where she is. That's a very, very popular spot for someone to hide when they have that kind of CC ult, right? You see the Ryan hide up there when he has Shatter. You should be seeing the Zarya hide up there when she has Grav. I mean, I wouldn't have expected the McCree to be there too. That was a little tricky. That was a little sneaky, and I liked it. But you're not seeing them check these corners. They ult early. They only get 4. They should know that those 2 are missing somewhere. And hopefully if they're tracking the ults properly, then they know that those 2 have ults.
Yeah, and that's one of the most important things, is it's not just tracking your ults of your own team. It's not just tracking the enemy ults. It's trying to figure out, you know, okay, so when they pop, Graviton Surge, what is our answer? Is our answer that we have no defense ultimates coming up, so we should just, die on purpose, right? Let them invest their Graviton Surge and maybe something else, and we invest nothing in the fight? These are the conversations you need to have before the Graviton Surge comes out, because in the moment, it's very difficult to make that call, especially to have everybody hear it. But if you know that you're not favored in a fight, they have Graviton Surge, you should be saying to your team, listen, this is a dry run. We're walking in. Let them get the kills, right? Be aggressive, but don't invest anything from our side. Because had they done that, had there been more of that heads-up play, we would have been seeing Zeroburst coming in with a lot more advantage in these fights. But I feel like they're reacting a little bit too much in the moment to what Bird Brains is giving them, in any individual moment. And they're not planning those steps 2, 3, 4 steps ahead to figure out how are the Bird Brains winning this fight? More importantly, how are they winning the next fight, and how do we stop that?
And I'm looking forward to seeing the punishment of these crazy flanks that we're seeing so much. I mean, at the beginning, a crazy flank catches you off guard. You don't expect it. If it's happening almost every single fight on first map, you should start to expect it every single time that you can. And I'm hoping that Zeroburst sort of catches on to what they're doing. It's not always the same person. It's not like Gingy's always the sneaky one, or it's always Yeddle. But no matter what, if they have an ult, they're trying to sort of sneak in and get this advantage. I want to see Zeroburst punishing the sneak. If they find out that Zarya's held up separately from the team to get a good grab, blow her up or make her waste her ult. It's not super hard. It's just, it takes amazing awareness, and you have to be looking for these things. So now that they, that's been happening a lot in King's Row, I'm hoping that those calls are there and that people start checking their corners a little bit, being a bit more cautious on the walk-ins when they see that they're not 6 strong on the front line.
And that's one of the biggest thing that separates, if you have a tracer on your team, let's say, the biggest thing that separates her from feeding and not feeding is just how good is the enemy team, right? Because if she's going to be in the back line, let's say maybe she's spawn camping the enemy McCree, enemy Zenyatta, and not let him back into the fight. If they're paying more attention, if they're able to actually kill her, well, then it's just your tracer was feeding. But the problem for the enemy team is if they're not looking for that tracer who's lurking in the back lines, trying to get that, that spawn camp, get that pick. If they're not paying attention to her, well, then your tracer's a god because she's taking your Zenyatta, or taking the enemy team Zenyatta out of the fight for 3, 4, 5 team fights in a row. So just like you said, Dancer, it's going to be crucial to make sure that we're checking our corners, we're seeing what's happening, and if we don't see somebody in front of us, especially a crucial piece like Zarya, well, where the heck could she be? And let's go there.
So I think maybe a mistake on the maps. We were about to see King's Row a second time. I love the map, but maybe not twice in a row, guys. And we're swapping it up to Dorado here.
Yeah, Dorado is a pure escort type map, so not similar to or not too dissimilar from what we saw at King's Row, where you have to assault the point and then take the payload with you. This is just, you're getting the payload for free, and it's who can push it the farthest. So one of the things that we're typically used to seeing here is, people do tend to like Junkrat a lot, especially on this first point here. Taking a look down at the map, what we can see right here is the enemy team absolutely have to walk up this main street. That's the only way that you can actually push the payload. So really what you're looking to do on defense here is just dump as much damage into that kill zone as you can. Maybe have a soldier, maybe have a Hanzo over on one side just to create a crossfire. But that's going to be what we're looking to see here. Just curious to see, what twists do they take on defense, if they're going to go with something as simple as that, or if they're going to have something maybe a little bit more creative.
And I'm always curious on escort maps, because there's actually a few good places you can hold. You can choose to take a high ground approach, choose the choke approach, or even if you go dive, it's pretty common to see spawn doors attempt to be held, because you have the guaranteed 2 fights. If your first fight happens before a cart really starts to move around that first bend, you know that all your dive characters, they're all highly mobile. They're going to be able to get to the second gate before checkpoint is reached. And so that's kind of like my favorite part about Dorado, my favorite part of this map. You see like a variety of holds And just because something's meta, I mean, we're in the dive and anti-dive meta, so it's kind of possible to run all of these styles. And I like seeing the variety in the games.
Yeah, and you know, with the different looks that Dorado specifically has, you know, all the maps have different looks when you get, you know, to point A, point B, point C in certain instances. But what I really like about Dorado here is, you know, there are some very, very different strategies that you can run. This is one of those maps where what you're running on point A defense here might not be the same as what you do on point B. Yes, of course it wants to change depending on what the enemy team is doing, but a lot of it also deals with, you know, the amount of, you know, high ground that you have access to, the lines of sight that you have access to, how easy it is to maybe reach, you know, hacked health pack. You know, those are a lot of the questions that you'll see becomes very different answers depending on which part of the map you're on.
And the thing to keep in mind when attacking here is that slow-moving comps are very, very punished by this high ground. We have it saved because of the pause right now. We see typically where you'd see the soldier, the McCree stand as the enemy team tries to enter choke. It's impossible to get there with any of your death ball characters. The Ryan takes 9 hours to climb through there and up the stairs. Same with the Zarya. So you're gonna have to see basically anything to contest that high ground. Otherwise, you get that free damage in your back line, and you're just getting free shots taken against you upon approach. Not to say you can't run the death ball here. I absolutely love it. It's just, it's something to keep in mind. It's another problem that comes up. A lot of the time you have to deal with that.
Yeah, and, you know, anything can be viable if you have good players making good decisions. But the question is, what's your, you know, what's the return on investment? If you're going to run something a little bit slower, and let's say you want to take the enemy's high ground from them, that's absolutely fine. But, you know, for all the investment you're putting into having certain heroes moving a little bit slower, you know, what return are you getting? Are you getting, you know, instant picks? Are you able to get into position and really bully the enemy team? Or are you taking too long and there's not really too much of a return on investment because your healers are dead, right? It doesn't really matter how good, you know, your DPS and your tanks are. If you're taking so long to get somewhere that your healers are dead, well, you might as well not have pushed that direction in the first place. So looks like the defense that we're going to be seeing pretty familiar faces for the most part here. We do have McCree as Dan Twist. We've got Zenyatta, Hog, Orisa, Mercy, and it looks like Flood's going to be taking that Junkrat. So, you know, just like I predicted earlier, people do tend to like the Junkrat on defense here. Even once the enemy team gets into the courtyard area, there's a lot of good areas that you can hide as Junkrat to get some pretty good bounces in there. So you don't really have to see the enemy team. You can still do a lot of damage. So we are going to be seeing the Junkrat coming in here.
Junkrat is so good for both styles of comp, too. He's so good for anti-dive because you can just shift the tank as they come in. You put so much damage into them, and worst case scenario, if they're healed up, you don't get the kill. That shift still CCs them away from the team. I think Junkrat's absolutely genius and almost necessary on this first point. You're going to see the rotation later into the choke, and he's just going to be getting so much free damage into the back line. Hopefully the tanks avoid it a little bit, but it's going to be difficult to get the dive here.
And I'm not sure how much work that's actually going to do here because Gingy is on that Widowmaker again, going to be putting a lot of pressure onto the enemy team because they can't really kill a Widowmaker. Maybe your McCree can put some damage into the enemy Widowmaker, but it's going to be very difficult. And she's got a lot of free room to flank if she wants, actually just stand still if she wants. So even though Flood is doing a lot of work, the entire enemy team is fairly mobile. So I'm not sure how many of his grenades are going to be hitting.
I think it's all about closing the sight lines here. Like you said, they don't got too much to deal with the Widow. You might be able to pull her and see what you can do with that, but if you can close off the sight lines with the walls and you're with your Orisa shield, you might have a chance.
And I really like the decisions that Enem is taking right here as the Tracer. So number one priority there was stay alive, right? Just be annoying, be an insect buzzing in the enemy team's ear, trying to maybe get some of the tanks to get baited and turn around and deal with you. So that part is great, but just staying alive for that long actually enabled you to get some of the kills when it really mattered on low targets. So very smart play, but unfortunately it didn't do too much since Zeroburst was able to actually maintain possession of the point there. and 2 huge kills coming in here. So Flood doesn't really need that tire, but has already popped it. Try to get at least 1 or 2 kills to make your stats look a little bit better, but not really too necessary to take over this fight.
And I mean, best case scenario there, like you said, they had already kind of staggered the fight because of the 2 picks they had gotten. So I think the goal there was go for the mech. Diva mech gets tremendous value. You knock it out, she's gonna have to kill herself, and the long spawn time for her.
All right, so Flood getting the first kill on the enemy team's Lucio, that's a big deal. But Gingy coming right back with the kill of her own onto the enemy team's Mercy. Now Zenyatta's going down too, so this might be the first time that we see Birdbrains getting some sort of advantage on this point. 3 kills coming in from Birdbrains, make that 4 or 5, and it looks like this is going to be the end of the hold for point A. So, you know, Zeroburst had a very, very confident showing there. This was probably the best that we've seen him so far, but it just took, you know, enough time for Gingy to be able to get into position and get those picks that it really ended up not mattering.
That's a big problem for Zeroburst too there, that both supports getting picked. I don't believe that Orisa halt is a good idea. Yeah, we saw Gingy pick her instantly. We're going to see a lot of aggression here. They know the healers are down. They just killed him recently. And then they're going to try and get some late picks here.
Well, this is the great thing that you'll see from a lot of higher level teams, right? So once you know the enemy team has actually lost the fight, it's not about stacking on cards. Sometimes you'll only leave maybe 1 person on card to push while the rest of your team goes and essentially spawn camps them. Because, you know, if you take an eye, or if you take a moment to pay attention to how many kills you're getting and at what rate you're getting them, you can actually see that a lot of these kills are maybe about 10 seconds apart. 2 kills we just saw there, Mercy going down about 5 seconds after her last teammate. So when you go spawn camp the enemy team, they really have nobody there to put up any real defense since they're coming back one at a time. You know, you get a Mercy alone for 5 seconds while her teammates are respawning. There's no reason not to kill her there. So you want to show a lot of aggression, push all your troops forward, and maybe just let 1 or 2 people actually push point. I kind of expected to see Primal Raids there, but maybe KADC just wanted to, you know, scare the enemy team, get them pushed back. Didn't really want to invest his ult there. Might be saving it for something else. But it looks like, you know, Birdbrains again just making so many good decisions. So not only were they able to establish presence on the point, but that really let Yido come in with a 2K Diva Bomb on both the enemy team supports. So, you know, all that space creation, getting somebody focused on what you're doing up front really helps them miss that Diva Bomb coming in over top.
And we still really haven't seen a full 6-person hold since point 1 here. They need a good regroup. Hopefully they're regrouping on this Zen ult here. Otherwise, they're just going to have such a hard time doing anything.
Well, the difference between the Zen ults there is, you know, coming in from Zeroburst, they Zen ulted just to get to the point, whereas Birdbrains, they Zen ulted to actually save some people. So, you know, same ults coming in at relatively the same time, but used for very different purposes. It's going to make it much, much easier for Birdbrains to be able to take the point here. Not a serial killer has anything to say. Getting a kill of his own, Flood coming and getting a kill with the Genji Blade is taken down. You know, these death throws that are coming in from Zeroburst is actually helping them completely stop this push. So that would be the first time that we've seen Zeroburst do anything on this map outside of their very first defense. And really, this is what they needed. They need that moment to just breathe, get some distance from the enemy team, and figure out what they're going to be doing here. It looks like Kurt's actually switching over to the Widowmaker. Not sure if I love that for this point here. Maybe if he pops off here, but he needs to start hitting some shots right away to make that switch worth it. And it looks like he's actually back onto the Diva, so not really sticking with that Widow. A little bit of a bait there. Gingy coming and getting the first kill on Avaris. Second kill coming in on the Diva mech, so it looks like this might be the time that the Birdbrains needed to actually pull up and get to the final few meters of this map here, pushing that payload with Gingy putting everybody on his back. And it looks like that is going to be it there. So Gingy getting that initial kill, getting 2 more kills throughout the fight, and then KADC creating all the space in the world for his team to actually inhabit. It made it very easy for, you know, Genji to get in there, for Tracer to get in there, pump out a lot of damage. But that's all because, you know, your Winston is in there creating the space, dropping the bubble, and giving you room to do the work you need to do.
that last minute hold by Zeroburst really threw off their ult economy as well. They had to pop, like you said, they popped Zen ult basically just to regroup in contest. They saw that Winston Diva was losing all of her DM before she could even take a step towards the payload. Winston's health bar was depleting so quickly, the Discord got thrown on him immediately. His shield was getting blown up. He really just couldn't do much. So the Zen ult had to be used there to get onto point. We don't like to see it, but I think it's a good call because you're not getting on payload without it. And then immediately, because they had to use it to get on, and they didn't even get really to start fighting with the Zen ult active, they had to pop the Mercy ult early there as well. So both support ults popped before the fight even really started, and it really ends up hurting Zeroburst. I don't think any of those were incorrect choices. It's just that's the position that they were put in by the Bird Brains. Being so aggressive, their ult economy was so on point. And their focus fire, they were just closing lanes by shoving so much focus fire anywhere they saw the Winston, anywhere they saw the Diva. Really good play coming out there.
So it was actually kind of interesting, you know, taking a look at what they were going to do on the defense, what the Bird Brains were going to do on the defense. I saw Gingy initially pick Widowmaker, which would have been great. Gingy, of course, not knowing that there's a pharmacy coming in from the attacking side. Later switching it over to the Soldier 76, which again would have been great. Now onto the Genji, which still might be fine, provided that Yeatle is able to get in there on the Diva and shut down Flood on the Pharah. So we're going to see if there's going to be a little bit of counterplay trying to get the Pharah out of the sky, because she's going to be a huge problem. All right, very early fight. Coming in, and I'm really surprised at KDC as that Winston was able to make it out of there alive. But Gingy is the first one going down here, so it looks like this is going to be an advantage of a 5v6 coming in for Zeroburst. Make that a 4v6, so now very confident is Zeroburst coming in, getting those first few kills. Now, from what it seems like, from what I can tell, Dancer, Bird Brains are just trying to put a lot of pressure on the point there and stop it from moving. They knew even if they got picked a couple of times, they'd still be able to regroup and take another fight in Courtyard. Is that what we were seeing there, or was it a little bit more of a feed?
I think as soon as they saw the position they were put in, where they were against the pharmacy, they didn't have much. You know, she was spamming closing off Anna from any of her proper positioning. They knew they had to take the early fight. They jumped on cart, started the brawl. Unfortunately, everything since then hasn't been a good hard reset, which is really what they should have done. But yes, Ark, I think it is what we were talking about earlier, where you have the dive comp, you know you can get back on cart if you need to. And so we're seeing it now. They got that second fight. They got the reset in. They got the second fight, and they ended up winning.
The fight decisively coming in, because Gingy, as soon as Gingy saw that you know, pharmacy comp, switching over to the Widowmaker, taking out the Pharah immediately in that fight and getting 2 more kills throughout the fight. Now Flood, seeing that, says, I'm not going to stay on Pharah, walking into Gingy as Widowmaker. Let me go ahead and switch over to the Genji. So let's see if we can get a little bit of a pick to the counter pick, as Gingy is now on this Widowmaker, and Flood really wants to try to do as much work as possible on the Genji. So huge pick coming in for Flood, getting that, getting the enemy team's Lucio. And what I really like to see there is we saw the Diva Bomb coming in. It was a great way to create some space for your team. It was truly a zoning ult there. Now we have actually kills going both ways. It's very tough to see. It looks like it's about a 3v3 on point. Flood really excelling as this Genji here, getting 2 kills at least in the past 10 seconds here. Now all he has to do is take out the enemy team's Winston, as he does. So Serial Killer getting the actual credit for that kill on the Winston, but we really know that Flood was doing so much work there. Something like 3, 4, maybe even up to 5 kills that were almost entirely due to Flood having that dash reset. All right, so now the question has to be asked, how do we deal with Flood? More importantly, how do we deal with Flood's Genji Blade? Because, you know, Zeroburst has the Genji Blade, but they also have Lucio's Beat, and Beat Blade is one of the best combos because it enables your Genji to get as much value as possible with his Blade. Now, of course, Bird Brains do have, looks like at least one Transcendence that they were going to be able to use, but not if Dan Twist has anything to say about it, getting a 2K with the Pulse Bomb. So this is pretty much going to guarantee the fight. So now we've got a real snowball coming in, not for Bird Brains, but from actually Zeroburst. They're showing a lot more competency with Flood on that Genji. What he's doing is he's putting so much pressure on the enemy team that they're very focused on getting Flood out of the sky, but all of a sudden, says Dan Twist, I'm going to walk in and I'm going to pulse bomb you myself. So now you have two people that you should be scared of on the team, on the field, pressuring your backline. You know, what are Bird Brains going to be able to do to solve this problem? And a real shame if you're Avaris there, 90% to your Transcendence. You probably would have liked to have it there, but unfortunately was not able to build it up fast enough. So as quickly as Zeroburst gets some sort of, you know, snowball type momentum going, Gingy pops off, and MTQ is actually able to push the entire enemy team back on that Tracer because they're a little bit too scared of pushing in Gingy. They're certainly not going to be pushing into a Tracer, so long to the snowball. Now they have to figure out, all right, well, we just lost all the momentum that we had gained up to this point. We better get some sort of combo. You know, is Flood going to be able to pop off with the Blade to open up the this next point for his team? And that's actually a huge deal. Ski is baited into using the Transcendence, which does help, you know, stabilize the team, but unfortunately, Flood is taken down because that was his moment to shine. Without the enemy team having Transcendence, your Blade is able to kill absolutely everybody without any stops, but he's taken out too quickly. Luckily for him, didn't use the Q, so he didn't actually lose it there. Some truly messy fights coming in here. So we've got kills being traded back and forth, and then we get to this stalling point in which, you know, Zeroburst has really zero motivation to move forward because you're getting pelted down by Gingy. Flood is still sitting on that Blade. It's actually been about 2 minutes at this point that Flood has had that Genji Blade, so I'd really like to see him use it.
Yeah, he finally has the ideal situation. No defensive ult. You know, Mercy might be able to shift away, but you know Zen's sitting there, helpless to it. So this should be a free win, assuming he engages early. We got another stagger, and there's gonna be only one fight left.
I really do not like what I would really love to see maybe Flood going on the flank, you know, right side by the coastline, trying to get a cute little pick, maybe get the Zenyatta who's out of position. Just try to make some sort of move here, because if you wait too much longer, we've seen Ski, you know, pulling out a lot of success on Zenyatta for the Bird Brain. So, you know, you wait too much longer, that Transcendence is going to be back. Some wonderful pulse bombs we're seeing. So now we do see the B-Blade coming in, is able to get one kill onto Gingy, who's the Widowmaker, but not able to see actually above the staircase that he trapped himself in, and unfortunately is taken out by Ski. So the B-Blade did have a lot of potential value, but a little bit sloppy on the execution there. Dan Twist is trying to keep the fight alive, getting a kill of his own onto the enemy team Zenyatta. Gingy coming back, getting a headshot on the Lucio. This might seal it.
So Flood got a little bit greedy there. He went in for the Zen. That was his target, his intended target. And as he goes in, he gets the dash slice off on Widowmaker, and he sees that she messes up her hook. And so instead of continuing on the Zen, who had also gotten the shift blade slice combo on, he gets a little bit greedy, goes for that slice, and kind of messes up with a weird wall run mechanic. And got really, really screwed, because at that point, the Discord's on you. Zen can essentially see you through walls. As you're climbing the wall, he's going to hit you for free when you get to the top. So now at this point, he's in a sort of a panicked state where Zen sort of has him outplayed here. He can see him through walls. He's just waiting for him to peek his head, and he's going to try and get a free shot. So I really don't like that play by Flood. He got a little bit greedy. He knew how good Gingy was doing on the Widow, and so he tried to have a bit of individual play there where he tried to go big, take the Widow out with the Zen in the same time. Misses the slice on Zen because he changed his focus a little bit too late in the slice. And it was big. I mean, you go for the Zen, you know you're killing him, he can't get away, and you have that free reset anyways. So, you know, take the extra slice. It's not going to be a big deal. Widow's not going to make a play in that extra 5 seconds it's going to take you to get there to her again. So it's just a little bit of I think a panic move by Flood where he saw who he had hit. He tried to get a little bit greedy, tried to get Widow and Zen together, and really screwed himself out of the fight there.
And it looks like now we're taking a trip over to another King of the Hill type map, another control point type map. So we're going out to Oasis. Now, this is very interesting. This is one of probably my personal favorite of all the maps on Oasis. I'm a huge fan of the high ground that you can get both in the window if you're a Widowmaker, and of course the T-shaped high ground that's on the point. And this is another one of those maps that's absolutely fantastic for Pharmacy, because all the walls that you're seeing, you know, these guarding walls that you're seeing on the left and side of point, left and right of point, you can actually go over those as a Pharah. So there's so much room for you to breathe as Pharah, and especially if you have the Mercy with you. It makes it very difficult for the enemy team to get a clear shot on you out of the sky, provided that you're not feeding and, you know, just floating, hovering above the point where everyone can see you. So looks like we're going to see a little bit of Pharah play coming in from both sides, make that Pharmacy play coming in from both sides. All right, so Flood is able to get the first direct shot on. Doesn't really do too much other than build the enemy team's Mercy's ult up. So you really need to get 2 direct hits in very quick succession to be able to do anything here. Gingy's not going to let that happen, doing a lot of you know, splash damage. Is able to take Flood down to 40. So at the moment, we're not seeing a whole lot coming in from the Pharah battle. Flood getting a little bit low there, almost taken out by KADC, who does take the opportunity to get some damage in on the Pharah, who's been dropped down to the ground. Overall, it just seems like the positioning is so much better here for the Bird Brains. They're already on point, so now the enemy team has to walk into them just to be able to contest points. So this is really where you want to be, especially as a Pharmacy. You just want to wait for the enemy team to walk in through one of 2 doors, and then you just spray down as much damage as possible. And unfortunately starting to lose it a little bit there, so it looks like the Mercy is going to be going down, but then we also see that, you know, Gingy was not able to stay alive for too much longer there, getting down to somewhere like 7 HP and finally being taken out, so not going to be able to do too much in this fight here.
Long fight for first cap, but finally we see the Bird Brains take it. Gingy came back, got that massive ult off, and I think they got a little bit unlucky with JK using his sound barrier just a bit too late. We saw Serial Killer just go down as he popped it, so he loses all that value of being able to heal the tank back up. Gingy gets back into the fight because he dies a little bit earlier, cleans it up, and that's how we saw that one in the very end.
Now, when it comes to these Pharah v Pharah battles, Dancer, do you think that they should be focusing on each other? Do you think it's more of just a dominance thing? Hey, I'm the Pharah who's going to be owning point here, get out of my way? Because it feels like a lot of times you spend a whole lot of time, up to, you know, 30, 40 seconds going after the Pharah. In reality, you could have been doing a lot more damage on the ground that entire time.
I'm really happy you asked that, Art, because I actually did want to bring it up a little bit. If you're focusing too much on the Pharah, first of all, you're not going to be building ult, because you're not going to hit those directs as consistently as if you just aim at the ground. Because even if you hit the ground, the splash damage is going to get you a bit of ult on what you hit it near it. And we see these players, you know, they get that direct and then they start to commit so much to trying to clean it up. But it takes so much skill to be able to hit these shots, 2 directs right in a row. You have a Pharmacy on both sides, so if one direct hit happens, it doesn't matter. You're getting topped up instantly. So it's just so much bigger for you to be helping your ground units. You're taking all the resources from Mercy healing away from your team, so it's good to be helping them out with damage a little bit rather than getting selfish, trying to win the duel and establish that dominance.
Our kills actually being traded back and forth here, but it looks like everything's coming up blue on the correct side of the kill feed. So even though that Pharah ultimate wasn't able to get a whole lot of damage, and oh no, the bunny hop too far. I've been there plenty of times as Mercy, as you're doing your bunny hop to one of your teammates, and you get booped a little bit by either the Winston or the Lucio, you fall over the side there, and there's really no hope for you.
You love to hear the panic in those comms, though. You never scream for life more than when you overshoot that ship just a bit too far and you're screaming for the peak to the edge.
All right, so it's time to breathe, slow down here, figure out what we're going to do to win next fight. You know, I say that a lot, but I really feel like teams don't do it too much. Even if the time is getting close or the percentage is getting close, it's always worth taking those couple extra seconds to make sure everybody's on the same page for the play that you're going to be running.
And as you say that, I think the way you're not going to win this fight is by taking this pharmacy duel for 9 minutes. We see you take that duel for so long. And if you end up losing it, you just lost so much value. Attacking team should never be focusing on that. The defending team has such a big advantage because even if it takes 40 seconds and you win the duel, you're just in so much trouble because you spent that 40 seconds to get 1 kill. Mercy can still res because Mercy's in the game. I don't think that's the way you win. If you're running the pharmacy on attack, get in there, get up in the face of the ground units, and put some damage that your team can follow up on. If your team follows up on some of that damage, you can do so much. And I think that's what we're seeing from Genji here. He's kind of ignoring the duel, knowing what his place is now, and we're going to see him do some damage and call it out, and his ground team should probably clean it up.
And I really love what we're seeing here. You know, a lot of people say, you know, if the enemy team has a Pharah, let's get a hit scan. And yes, that's always going to be true, but D.Va can do so much damage to a Pharah, even by herself, just by getting in the Pharah's face, shooting the micro missiles, and then also holding, you know, defense matrix to stop her from hurting you. And then, of course, when you get close enough to her, you let go of that defense matrix, and you just let her blow herself up against your mech. So, you know, as much as hit scans can do against a great Pharah, D.Va can do so much more too, and unfortunately for the Monkey, not only able to do a whole lot, especially when Barrage is coming in, getting taken out of the sky pretty decisively.
And I think the biggest nerf to Pharmacy we've ever seen in Overwatch was when D.Va got that patch of being able to shoot and fly at the same time. Because before we used to see the old Pharah, when you couldn't shoot and shift at the same time, you'd see the shift melee to get that 70 damage, and then the D.Va would be struggling to get perfect tracking to clean it up. Now you can just get that easy damage. Your shift melee combo should be getting, with your shotguns, probably about 120, 150 damage easy. Even a Winston could jump up melee and finish it off. I mean, after those D.Va changes, you absolutely don't have to rely on a hit scan to shut down a Pharmacy. You just have to be coordinated, or you have to dedicate the D.Va to it. I mean, if you don't have a hit scan, that's D.Va's job. She should be tracking the Pharah with every single bit she has. Winston should play a little bit more defensive, knowing that D.Va has a different job than to keep him alive. And you absolutely don't have to do that swap to hit scan. It's really messy when you have to force the dive with a hit scan. You have to waste so many resources healing, pocketing, and protecting him. Sometimes it's just easier to have D.Va focus on it, have Winston play a bit easier, and you can still build that space for your DPS.
All right, KDC getting melted immediately as that Winston did not expect to see the entire enemy team focusing him down up there, so that's going to be a pretty huge deal. Unless this team's able to actually come back, so it looks like D.Va's getting a kill on the Pharah. Mercy's going down too, so this might be just precisely what they were planning on from the very beginning. Let our Winston die, bait the enemy team in, then res him and kill everybody.
And I don't know if that's the plan, but that was definitely called in comms, and I'll tell you why. Because we saw, and the calculated boop. We see Genji peeling for himself so well and so consistently. You know for sure that their Mercy's calling out, hey, I'm going for the res, get into a spot where you can help yourself. Groups himself off the D.Va mech, puts her on one side of these large gates, himself on the other, and now he's invincible. She's going to take too long to get to him. She's out of position, he's out of the fight, but that's a free res for their team.
Yeah, really, really smart play, and that's what we've been seeing from the Bird Brains all night long. We've been seeing heads up, smart plays, making sure that everything you do has a reason for it, right? You're not just trying to pop off like this is solo queue comp, making sure that every decision you make is something that's going to be affecting your entire team for the better, not just can you get something for yourself at this one moment. I actually thought that cyberbullying was wrong, but apparently not, according to the Bird Brains there. I mean, that Pharah has actually just been bullied out of this game. I'm curious to see if we're going to see a switch here.
And
I'm
I
not
think,
saying you necessarily have to switch, and yeah, here comes a switch right now.
I think we should. Running, like I said, running the offensive Pharah, it puts you a lot of problems. The fights are typically more extended, so you're losing so much percentage. If they're still running the Pharah, then it's gonna be very, very difficult for them here.
You know what Gingy wants to do? Exactly that with the 3K coming in. Make that a 4K if you include the D.Va Mac getting the follow-up kill on Baby D.Va. It looks like the entire enemy team's down. We're going for a team wipe on that one. Absolutely getting outperformed Gingy's outperforming everybody else, I should say. Very, very confident with that slow roll in, knowing that you had the Pharah barrage to be able to take down the entire enemy team. So again, that's what we're seeing. Smart heads-up play, not investing too much into that fight, just enough to be able to make sure you get the team fight win, force the enemy to be very, very chaotic for this final fight here. I mean, once overtime starts, you tend to see the enemy team really have this panic mode that we have to touch point, which is true, but at the cost of making good decisions, it's not really going to be as true, because really it just shows, yeah, you got the point cap for a couple seconds there, that's great, but really had no push at all. You had no focus fire. You had nobody, even thinking about comboing ults, because, you're so panicked after that Gingy, 4K, that you're just trying to figure out, how do we even keep the game alive, not how do we win the fight?
Yeah, that Gingy flank was so clean, so crisp, and it's exactly what you want to see from D.Va, or from Pharah. The D.Va didn't have time to turn around. I think he got 3 picks before he even knocked out the D.Va mech. All of that surface damage got put onto enemies. I've almost never seen it that cleanly without the grab setup. And they were just perfectly in his radius, where every single rocket did damage against them. And you just can't let that happen. That's so bad. He did a good job of not using his thrusters. There was 0 audio cues of him being there, of Gingy being right above them, into that position, slides off the roof, and basically gets that free ult. Didn't have to combo with anything.
Alright, so no pharmacy coming in this time for either team. It looks like we do have the switch for Gingy onto the McCree, which I do like to see. McCree's got a lot of stopping power, especially with that flashbang. And of course, just being able to ding headshot people from across the map is especially helpful if you are a McCree player. All right, KBC doing a lot of staying alive here, which is actually huge. That's what you need from your Winston, especially if the enemy team has a Reaper on it, which of course, Zeroburst has. Now, the great thing about Reaper is he can really take down the enemy team's tanks very quickly, especially the enemy team's, scientist, Winston, very quickly. The only problem is, and this is what I think a lot of people forget, Reaper dies if you shoot him, right? So if you can force the enemy team's Reaper to use his shift just to stay alive, then it's very easy to just follow up and get that kill on him here. So it looks like Gingy is able to get the kill, but it might not be enough, because a huge push is about to be coming in from Zeroburst. They have a lot of advantage here. Let's see what they can do with it. Gingy trying to just push everybody off point with the McCree ult, so it does kind of work for him, but he does pay for it with his life.
But paying for it with your life is not a big deal at all when you got Mercy in the game. Get those consistent reses, and it almost feels unfair when you have the positioning. McCree, yeah, you killed him, but you killed him on his side of the map. They have so much space. You know that's going to be a free res. Mercy wasn't sweating it, waited that 3 seconds for the cooldown to come off, and it looks like she's now resing on cooldown, which basically means it's a 7v6 every fight.
Looks like we have Floods trying to do as much work on hit scan as possible right now. Now here's the problem though, he's really pushed back in this corner. He's not going to be able to do a lot of damage, especially with the tanks diving in his face. So I'm not sure how much value he's going to be able to get, especially considering Gingy has this high ground, just able to shoot everybody, not too scared, but he does get taken out. Now that Zenyatta hit was actually insane. Really, Gingy did not expect that to be coming through there. Was trying to avoid getting touched by the Reaper's Death Blossom, but unfortunately is taken out by Zenyatta. I like what Dan Twist is doing here, just setting up shop on point and asking the enemy team, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to take care of this Reaper? Now, we talked about it a little bit earlier. Yeah, Reaper dies if you shoot him, but unfortunately, if your team is really separated, you can't really burst him down. He's able to stay alive because he's getting 20% health regeneration on every bit of damage he does.
And at first we saw the Bird Brains were doing so good at avoiding the Reaper damage. I mean, typically, if you're not going to kill Reaper, the next best thing is just fully avoid him as much as you can. Absolutely. Just don't try and touch him. And we saw both tanks would kind of bait him to one side of the point, shift, and jump on a target on the other side for free. Unfortunately, they lost the Winston. They couldn't do it anymore, and they were in a bit of trouble.
All right, Reaper is going to be taken out by Zenyatta, and then we have McCree going off, which is good. Gingy getting a bunch of kills here, so it looks like there's going to be a point cap coming in from the Bird Brains off the back of the Zenyatta pick onto the Reaper, and then Gingy putting down some pretty consistent damage here. And I don't know that they're going to have enough time to be able to touch point here to force the overtime. It looks like they're not, even with Transcendence coming in. So Birdbrain taking yet another map, a little bit more decisively here, getting a 3-0 victory on top of Zeroburst. So, really, what did we miss out on there, Dancer? What was Zeroburst attempting to do that maybe they just weren't executing on very well?
It feels like, I don't even know if it's their fault. They're running the anti-dive, right? You have that CC, you have the halt, you have the Reaper, you have the hook. Anything that you can get halted, anything that you can get hooked, it's gonna die because it's coming into too much damage. And it feels like the Bird Brains played around it so well. Like I said, they were avoiding the Reaper, they were kind of baiting him to one side, they jumped the other side. They have so much damage there. They got the Junkrat spamming doors all the time. But it's just completely useless because not much can be done there. You didn't see any massive hooks getting hit. We didn't see the tank play punished much. And as soon as it was, we saw the Winston die first. As soon as that happened, D.Va's going to get demexed. She doesn't have that shield. She kind of just gets bullied from multiple angles. But at that point, it was already about 89% to 0. The flip comes, Bird Brains completely changed their comp, and now anti-dive is irrelevant because they're running the death ball, which can just walk in, and you can't really punish death ball with anti-dive. Not too well anyways. We saw Reaper get blown up the instant his chef came up. I don't even think I saw any health on him at all. And so it's just really smart play there. Bird Brains know that they were running that Zeroburst was running the anti-dive against them. They played around it as best they could, and as soon as it stopped working, they know they're not going to be able to retake against anti-dive. They swap to they swap to the death ball, and then they clean it up from there. They didn't even need ults because your comp is just completely negating everything the enemy's comp wants to do. It's just a good big game of chess, and they had him in checkmate there when they built so much ult against a comp that shouldn't be working. Running dive into anti-dive, you have to be very smart, you have to be very consistent, and you cannot make mistakes. Anti-dive thrives on punishing mistakes. Winston jumps in a little bit too much, you blow up bubble, you can halt him, you can hook him. And he's dead instantly, and you have that safe space with the Junkrat. No one can dive into the back we saw there. A lot of the time, Winston and D.Va just kind of be diving, trying to poke, trying to get someone low. And we waited for McCree to hit shots. That would be the dive target. Reaper would be out of position, and he wouldn't be able to punish it.
And what I really want to see here coming in from Zeroburst, I want to see them find a way to enable Serial Killer to do as much work as possible. If he sticks on the Reinhardt, that's fine. I saw him, thinking about the Winston earlier. But that's what you need. You need your tanks to be able to feel, almost invulnerable when they're pushing in. You need to make sure that they feel confident upon pushing in, that they're not going to die immediately. Because the more confident your tanks feel, the more space they can create, the more space that they can take up. And then that, of course, allows, your Zenyatta to get some room to work. It allows your Genji to get into the high ground areas, to get into the backline and do some work. So really it's going to be, how hard can we pocket Serial Killer here? And should we have a D.Va to go with him?
If he's running the Winston, I run the D.Va. I'm not a fan of Zarya in this meta. Run her on King's Row and put her in your basket of tricks for a different meta, and use that later. I absolutely don't like Zarya here. If they're
Well, it's
completely
pretty
confident in
typical
it.
for people to be holding top left with that soldier. So if you know that the soldier's going to be up there, you know, you got to figure out some way to kill him. You're not going to be able to run to him fast enough. So if you're going to dive, make sure you have somebody who can help you dive. Looks like Kurt is going to be switching onto the D.Va there. So we've got D.Va Winston coming in, hopefully looking to dive the soldier. They do see him there. Now it's just a decision, when do we push in? And it looks like now is the time. And this is exactly what they were expecting. So that's why the soldier holds up there, because even if you do dive him, he just turns around, holds shift to run away, and then you're not able to actually get the kill. Now, that is a little bit different if you can, you know, plan for that and jump behind him. But really, really smart play coming in there. And of course, Simu's getting 2 kills. Not of course Simu's. Simu's turret, his little baby actually doing as much work as possible. It is eventually taken down, but not before it's able to get 2 kills. So really smart play by having the... I don't want to say unconventional, because a lot of people do like having the Torbjorn here, but I don't feel like it's really that great if the enemy team is, you know, triple tank and they just decide to walk to point. You're not going to be doing too much with it. You know, that is really just there to take down, you know, squishy targets who get caught out. All right, Dantwist is going to be able to get his tactical visor first, way before Gingy is able to get it. So Dantwist doing a lot of damage here, doing a lot of work. When is he going to pop it? Probably trying to make sure that the tanks are down. As soon as I say that, he pops that and the tanks jump right in his face. Looks like Yeetle might have missed the memo there. Actually didn't dive in with the Winston, and just because of that, Dantwist stayed at full life there. Wasn't able to get a whole lot of kills with Tactical Visor, but was able to punch in a lot of damage, taking down almost the entire Winston, taking down the D.Va out of her mech. So it looks like there's going to be a point cap coming in from Zeroburst.
And that's the way it should be. I mean, if Dantwist is getting that high ground for free, we didn't see any dive there, and finally at the end, when he popped Attack Visor, starts doing a ton of work, the dive is called on him from Birdbrains. We saw that his own Winston jumped up there for the anti-dive, or the counter dive, as they call it, blows up the Winston with him, with Dantwist's help. If you're giving the soldier free high ground like that, it's pretty clear that he's going to build Attack Visor that quickly. You got to be diving him sooner. He's uncontested, and if he's a good soldier, he's just going to be doing so much free damage, which is what we saw.
Dantwist is a great soldier. We actually saw him get a wonderful prediction rocket shot on the Ana earlier to get a pretty beautiful kill, if I do say so myself. So now he just has all the space that he needs with both of his tanks and the Genji moving forward, you know, really pressuring the enemy team to get stuck into this room. And Dantwist can essentially just shoot blindly if he chooses and probably get at least 1 or 2 kills.
And this guy almost doesn't need the Tactical Visor. Perfect tracking on the Zen there, cleans up the kill. His D.Va was doing most of it, but he ended up just cleaning it up for free.
This might actually be the fall of a legend. Yeah, Dantwist finally going down there because they, the Birdbrains were able to put together a pretty good defense against him, throwing essentially everything except for the kitchen sink up at the high ground there. So Dantwist is taken down. KDC is just going to go ahead and let this D.Va live for as long as possible, taking her out to get the stagger in. So just before the point is capped, looks like the Birdbrains finally have a little bit of life in them, and they are able to get a pretty decisive stop there, but they don't have a whole lot coming into next fight. No support ultimates, and this is getting scary because Flood on the Zeroburst team on attack here, he is going to have his blade and the beat if they need it. So this is a pretty scary moment coming in if you're on defense here. You got to hope that you get a few more picks to make this work.
I was going to say, I don't like the Zen standing there. That feels like a free kill for Zeroburst. Have your Zen stand up top with a soldier, then your team can actually counter dive if they need to. Soldier can put down a healing pad for you. But sitting in the back like that, you just see the team acknowledges it, they see it, and they get that free dive almost completely unpunished by Birdbrain. I don't know what the positional call was there, but I really didn't like to see that.
A little bit of miscommunication, I would guess, in that particular instance. Looks like Serial Killer is going to be taken out here from the D.Va bomb coming in from Yeetle. Dantwist getting another Helix rocket kill. This time it's going to be on the enemy Tracer, so we've got kills being traded back and forth here. But it does look like, you know, Flood is instructing the rest of his team, hey guys, slow down here. We still have Beat Blade. You know, they don't have their Transcendence. We watch them just use that Transcendence, so we should be able to get a pretty free, decisive kill here to cap the point.
we see Zen moving up to the high ground. Hopefully this time it works out better for him. I'm not sure if maybe it was an intentional feed call. They wanted a free dive on Zeroburst's backline, making all the DPS and the tanks chase Skiritai out into the back of point 3, but
really smart on the beat portion of that beat blade, because Flood actually got a huge right click slapped onto him by the enemy Zenyatta, but you know, he is able to live through. Very convincing fight there, and I really think that it was a smart call dropping that beat very early. Usually I don't like to, if I'm playing Lucio, I don't like to pop my beat too early. I want to do it in a reactionary way, but what you knew you needed right there was, you know, you just needed that team fight. You needed that win to be able to push on to the next point, so, you know, investing the beat was a really smart decision there early on in the fight.
Yeah, you don't want to play around when the payload is so close to that second tick, because your respawn timers are awful. It's better to just maybe use one extra ult and guarantee a win fight than take a chance and save it for later.
All right, so it looks like all the kills are going into the direction of, unfortunately for them, not Birdbrain. It's going to be going for the Zeroburst here. It actually is a little bit curious here, because every single time that I see that, there's always somebody left over on the Birdbrains who's able to get those 1-2 more kills, and that's actually a huge deal. I know it doesn't feel like that, but even if your team wins the fight, like we just saw Zeroburst, you know, losing those 1 or 2 people is actually a pretty big deal, because now the enemy team's going to respawn faster than you with their entire team there, and is much more highly, you know, rated to be able to get that pick. Not only are they getting the respawn advantage, and as we're seeing here, it's paying off for them, but they're getting more people back to the point faster. And that's exactly what they needed. So the dying throws coming in from Yeatle on that Baby Diva, I think getting at least 1 or 2 picks while the rest of the team was respawning was such a huge deal, especially on defense. You know, having that moment to get your team completely back into position. You know, you don't really care if your Diva dies too much there. If she takes out 2, now you're all of a sudden in a 5v5 or a 5v4 situation. And this is exactly what the Birdbrains needed. They needed a moment to get some positional advantage because they know that Flood's going to be coming in with this Genji Blade soon. So it's going to be very scary if everybody's standing still. A little bit of a bait there, though. The Zenyatta thought that the blade was going to be coming out, probably for good reason, because he got dove initially, so popped the Transcendence, but unfortunately Flood had a great heads-up play, not actually pulling the blade out there until he knew it was necessary, baiting the Transcendence out, and then throwing the blade after.
Yeah, it was a little bit premature. I know it's scary when you see that speed boost coming towards you. He had the pocket, he had everything, but Flood didn't even hit a single shot onto Zenyatta before that ult was popped. So it was very, very more so a reactionary, a bit of panic there. Definitely could have been held a little bit longer. And when you're that close to the door, maybe you could even try and get into your spawn door safe out of the blade's radius. Just a little bit too early on the ult there, and it really got punished.
I usually go by audio cue there, especially if I hear that coming in. I know I want to, you know, be saving it for that, but I think we've all been there using that. It would have been the best play of his life had, you know, Flood not really had that smart decision to just hang on to the blade for an extra half second to see what happens. So again, Birdbrains, this is what they've, you know, really been the best at the very least on Numbani. Every other map, they've been very convincingly winning fights and then maintaining their advantage over time. Here, it seems like they're much more scrappy. They're getting beat in a lot of these fights, but then they have that moment to come back and get those couple of kills, you know, at the very least holding on to a point. It is an overtime here, so it's going to get to a point where the attackers' respawns are going to get so ridiculously long that it's essentially going to be like they're out of the game permanently for the rest of the fight, because, you know, 30-40 seconds in, you might as well not even be in the game anymore.
And that Moira shift we saw used a little bit too early. Smart awareness of the Genji, hurt it, and right away, as soon as she comes out of shift, cleans up the kill with Blade. Really got punished there for the early shift once again, just like the Transcendence was punished with the early Transcendence.
I don't want to call for the Zeroburst because although they are decisively ahead in this fight, this is what we've seen coming in so many times, and this is going to be the one time that it looks like Birdbrains are not going to be able to recapitalize on that. So really, really strong fight. They're getting it into overtime. I got to say, I love what the Birdbrains were able to do and actually forcing that point into overtime. They had some very sticky characters. They had some very annoying characters staying alive on the point to enable that. So now we're in a position where, pretty much whatever Birdbrains do, as long as they get to the end of the road, they're going to be pretty much ahead, unless it happens very similar to what we just saw where it gets to overtime. Then they'll be on equal footing with Zeroburst. But what I expect to see, at the very least from what we've seen so far, is, I expect to see this match won with, Birdbrains having maybe 2, maybe up to 3 minutes left on the clock. They've been showing us that as soon as they own the tempo of the fight, as soon as they kind of press that advantage, they're able to maintain success throughout.
And not a horrible place to be. You did push it to overtime. If you get more than 1 minute of time bank here, you can basically consider it a win because it's just the race for the first tick. Completely possible. You shouldn't feel too bad with that. Just come out the gate showing a lot of aggression. Show that good alt economy. And more than 1 minute is easily achievable here. And that's really what their goal should be and what they're looking forward to.
All right, so it looks like there's going to be a pretty classic dive going on here. So coming in from the Birdbrains, we've got Gingy back on the Genji. Yito's going to be on the D.Va, been doing a lot of work on the D.Va, and KDC has been creating all the space in the world that his team needs to be able to enable them to do their job. Coming in on that Winston again. Very interesting to see JK on the Zeroburst side pulling out the Ana here. So, we've seen a little bit of Ana play so far, but the tough thing is if you have the enemy team who's very fast, even if you get that blade, even if you get that sleep onto the enemy team, as Ana, you just have nowhere to go, and KDC is showing that right now, jumping straight up to the Ana, taking her out of the fight. It does pay for it with his life, but it might be worth it because now it looks like all the kills are going into the direction of the attacking team. So Yito finally getting the kill on the enemy D.Va. Yeah, this is very convincingly coming in for the Birdbrains here. So they're going to get the first fight, and this is exactly what they needed. Win the first fight, and then maintain the pressure on the enemy team throughout. So let's see if this is just like what we saw in Dorado or King's Row, right? Where we saw the Birdbrains actually picking up on that first fight, and then just maintaining the pressure on all the respawns that were coming in.
I don't know if I like that hold with the Ana Zen. I do like Ana Zen as a combo for defensive healing. You can build a good crossfire and get a lot of free healing done. But the problem there is they're sitting right beside each other. The dive happens. You get the D.Va defense matrix on top of Ana. She can't heal Zen at all. He gets blown up for free. And then you just clean up the fight onto Ana. Right away, you've just got both healers for free. So you either have to hold a little bit further up with your front line, build the space so that they can't just dive on your healers for free, or you have to build that crossfire where you can heal and peel for each other without, getting full dove yourself, both characters getting full dove.
And we saw a little bit of life coming in there. But unfortunately, it doesn't really do anything here. So we did see about 4 kills coming in from Zeroburst. So they were able to do a lot of damage, but it didn't really mean much because the point kept moving. Now, Gingy is going to be pulling out the blade here, getting the Zenyatta Transcendence, and it looks like Gingy is going to be able to carry his team to the fight here. NMTQ is doing a lot of work as well. KADC coming in with that final kill. So that blade was really, really smart. Put the enemy team on their heels. A lot of them tried to escape, but there just really was no escape, especially with the pulse bomb coming in after. Now we find a monkey in his natural habitat. Apparently they hide in staircases a lot, but he is able to make it out.
Really smart play there. Waits for the Tracer to come by so he can get the dash to give him damage, as well as reposition him on that health pack. Just some of those GM mindsets that you see. Knock out 2 birds with 1 stone. Instead of using the dash to just sort of get yourself in the right position, he puts himself in a place where he can do both damage and reposition with one swift strike.
Well, here's the whole payoff to having an Ana on your team. You've got the Nano Boost here. Now, what are you going to do with it? Who are you going to be giving it to? I don't really see a lot of good candidates. There's certainly no candidates that are alive at the moment that you can give it to. And not even being able to use it at all there, which is probably smart. You might be able to get one more fight here before the point. Otherwise, I don't even know if we saw a single Nano Boost that entire round.
We didn't. It was just so hard with the aggression from Birdbrains. You know, I said that's how they're going to get the good time bank. You get that massive fight at the beginning, and then you just keep the ult economy in your favor. We saw a little bit of like massive expenses with the ults. They wanted to guarantee second point. That's where sort of Zeroburst lost most of their time. On that second point, you can get the horrible spawn timer, the long walk. Really hurts your time. So we saw almost every single alt pop there just to secure that second checkpoint and get the better spawn. But after that, Zeroburst never got the opportunity to stabilize. It was very unfortunate. But we did see that aggression and that good ult economy, and that's really what leads to a good time bank. If you get one good fight, just have that good ult economy and you're basically guaranteed the map.
Well, it was very difficult to actually pinpoint what was going so well for the Birdbrains, right? Because so many times I wanted to say, you know, take a look at Gingy, right? Gingy's popping off on Widow, doing a lot of work on, you know, Genji, pulling out the blade, really smart plays. But Gingy wouldn't have been able to do that if it wasn't for, you know, Yeatle coming in, and of course, you know, ADC coming in, being able to do as much, you know, space generation as the Winston Diva combo. So once you have your tanks making all that space, yeah, of course your DPS is going to do work. But then again, your tanks can't do that unless your healers are doing all the work, keeping your tanks alive. So this is when it becomes, you know, when you see a team who's firing on all cylinders, everybody's making good decisions. It seems like they have that good hive mind mentality where they're all, you know, pushing towards the same direction at the same time. It's very difficult to pick out who is the best performer because everybody enabled everybody else.
And I was just talking to some of the other coaches at Horizon as well yesterday, and I was kind of talking about the difference between individual and team value. We saw so much individual value from Zeroburst when they were winning the Widow duels, when they did big plays. They used big ults there, you know, they had massive grabs, but it felt like there wasn't a lot of team value. And what I mean by that is team value is when your team either sets up a player for a play, or more importantly, allows your own team to set you up for a play. So very often you see DPS make these massive plays with immense individual value, but very often it costs your ult, and it can almost throw your team off because they don't know what you're doing. It can put them in a hard spot. But it's so much more valuable to have a DPS say, hey, I have my ult, how can you set me up? If you have, you know, it's like a spike in volleyball. You know, you can hit it hard alone, but how much better can you hit it when you have that perfect volley? And I think that's what was going right with the Birdbrains. They had such good setups, and I like to refer to that just as the team value. You know, your DPS is waiting, taking better opportunities, and allowing your team to set you up. And that's just so big. It's so massive in this game. So many people don't understand. It's not just about killing the other 6 people on the team. It's about playing well together, and all of you should be rotating your ults. All of you should be talking, and if you're a team, you should be standing with your brothers, setting them up, and more importantly, the DPS should be letting your tanks and letting your healers set you up. And I think that's what went right with the Birdbrains. I don't know. I don't know Zeroburst well enough, and it's really hard without hearing the comms to say what went wrong or why they dropped a few more maps than Birdbrains did today. But what I saw from the gameplay is that the Birdbrains made a lot better team plays, and they made them more consistently.
Absolutely, and so and that's what we've seen in a few of these different scrims, right? Where somebody's doing all the right things, but they're doing it in the wrong location. For example, you know, Genji blading a Diva mech. You know, you're doing a lot of work, and nobody's saying that you're not doing work, but unfortunately, if you took that work somewhere else, it would do a lot. It would have a lot more value. So, very curious to see if we can get a rematch coming in sometime in the near future for Zeroburst and the Birdbrains. I think Zeroburst has a lot of potential to be able to overthrow the Birdbrains in their success here, but it really comes down to, you do the work that you've been doing, but just point everybody in the same direction, and you're going to have a lot more success there. So with that, that's going to be our cast of the day, our scrim of the day. Very much big thank you coming out to Bird Brains for joining us here, and of course Zeroburst for coming in and doing so much work there. We had a lot of fun. Thank you so much. Thank you, of course, for myself, Argender, and thank you very much to my wonderful co-host Dancer for casting alongside me.
Yeah, thank you very much for tuning in. And like Ark said, we do these all the time. This was our Sunday night. We do the Sunday night and the Tuesday night. We try and hit 8 p.m. Eastern. But make sure you follow our social media below the stream. Join the Discord. It's an amazing community, free coaching, and make sure you tune in again. We do these every Sunday and Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. If the times change, we'll make sure you keep you posted on social media. Thanks so much for tuning in, and have a great night, guys.
Gotcha.